Alright folks, so this is the new Hero 4K from GoPro, and this is their new budget-friendly grab-and-go GoPro, where it comes with most of the basics that you may need from an action camera and keeps the price low, actually half the price of their Hero 13 Black, by basically not including a lot of the bells and whistles, but it still comes with a lot of core features. So a lot of you out there may remember the Hero Session, and there's also the Hero 11 Black Mini, and although there are similarities to those cameras, this new Hero 4K is actually a slightly different camera where they basically just shrunk their Hero 13 Black in terms of size as well as features, but they also did make it really easy to use where they basically just have 3 modes to choose from: shooting video, shooting slow motion, and taking photos. That's it. So there's definitely some great things about this camera, and there's also some things that aren't so great either. And in this video, I'm going to give you the full rundown on why you may want this camera, but also some reasons why you may not. And if you do find the information in this video to be useful, just do me a favor and quickly hit that like button down below. So for the unit itself, so it literally just looks like they shrunk their Hero 13 Black by about 1/3. And this is a great size, by the way, just kind of like toss in your pocket. It's really convenient. But what I also think makes the difference with this camera is the weight, where it's about half the weight of the Hero 13 Black. GoPro's most recent cameras have a ton of features and all, but they also are starting to get a little bit chunky, both in terms of size as well as weight. And I do really quite like the size and weight of this quite a bit. And I think the difference in weight really comes into play when you're mounting it on a helmet, especially if you mount your camera on the side of your helmet, where you can really feel that 160 grams or so of the Hero 13 Black. With this, it's totally not a big deal. And then in terms of durability, so it's water resistant down to 5 meters or 16 feet. And it did also fall off my bike when I was testing it, so it certainly can take a drop and still looks perfectly fine. So on the front of the camera, we have the lens, and this is a replaceable lens cover right here that's made out of Gorilla Glass, but there doesn't appear to be any lens mods like their Hero 13 Black. Maybe that'll change in the future, but nothing at the moment. And another difference here is that it doesn't have a front display like the Hero 13 Black. And then on one side, we've got the power and mode button, and then on top, we've got the record button, and then on the other side, we've got a door that protects the micro SD card slot as well as a USB-C port that's also used for charging. Now, you'll notice though that it doesn't have a removable battery, where this has a built-in battery, and we'll definitely chat about that a little bit later when we talk about battery life. And then on the back of the 4K, we've got the touchscreen display where you can switch through the 3 different modes as well as access settings. And for the shooting modes, they have a video mode where it can shoot in 4K at 30 frames per second, a slow-mo mode where it can shoot in 2.7K at 60 frames per second, and then they have a photo mode where you can take 12 megapixel photos. And then for the settings, if we swipe down from the top, you can turn on and off voice control. You can turn on and off the beeps. There's a screensaver mode for turning off the display when recording to save on battery life. There's an orientation lock. And then there's also a battery saver mode here. And what this does, by the way, is that it actually drops the video recording mode as well as the slow-mo mode down to 1080p to save on battery life. And then there's also screen lock if you're going to use it in the water. And then if we swipe to the right, there's some other settings here like connecting to another device like a remote, as well as changing like the beep volume and stuff like that. But that's basically it. They basically kept it really simple. And it's certainly not as customizable as their Hero 13 Black, but I also have to say that it is just really crazy simple to use. The Hero 13 Black can be a super powerful and incredibly customizable camera, but it also can be a little bit overwhelming with all the options that they have in here. This 4K may only have the basics, but it also is incredibly simple. And if you're the kind of person that just wants to kind of capture something really quick without having to mess around with settings, this is really great. Anyhow, moving back to the hardware. So on the bottom of the 4K, we've got the foldable built-in fingers, just like the Hero 13 Black. And these are also replaceable in case you break them off, but you can just go ahead and mount this to like the multitude of GoPro accessories that are out there. However, one thing that's missing here is the ability to use their new magnetic latch that was just introduced on the 13 Black, and to be honest with you, this was a pretty big miss in my opinion. It just seems to me that for something that's supposed to be really simple and grab and go, a big portion of that is convenience, and that magnetic latch is just so much more convenient than thumb screws. And in looking at the bottom, it does look like it could be possible, but it also does look like kind of a stretch where the size of the case may not accommodate for those extra little holes for the latches. And I'm really crossing my fingers, not like these fingers, but my fingers, for an accessory that adds magnetic mounting. And I'm not sure if some of those existing third-party replacement magnetic quick releases will actually fit on here, but I'm going to go ahead and order some of those and see if they work. So I'll go ahead and follow up on that with a later video. Anyhow, that's the hardware, but now let's talk about the actual footage. So the standard shooting mode is 4K at 30 frames per second in a 16:9 aspect ratio. Then it has a slow-mo mode where it can shoot 2.7K at 60 frames per second, again in 16:9, and then you can take 12 megapixel photos in a 4:3 ratio. And then you can actually drop that down to 1080p if you'd like for video and slow-mo by using the battery saver mode. And then the Hero 4K also does have hyper smooth stabilization for video. Well, Sort of. So it doesn't apply it in the camera itself. So to get the footage stabilized, you have to export it through the Quick app. And the stabilization is as you would expect, where it looks great for all kinds of activities. But if you're pulling footage straight from the SD card, it doesn't have any of that stabilization applied. It's just going to be raw footage without stabilization. And here's where you can just see how much software magic they actually do on the footage for stabilization. Oh, and then one more thing to note is that the stabilized footage is cropped in just slightly, since that's actually how software stabilization works, is punching in to remove some of the physical shake. So this is where if you are doing heavier editing on a desktop computer and usually just pull the SD card and download it to your computer, that doesn't really work in this camera, where there is an extra step of importing into the app and then exporting it out. And this is where I think this camera will be really good for like social media posting and stuff like that, but it's going to be less convenient for desktop editing. Now, the quality of the footage itself isn't going to be on par with the Hero 13 Black, of course, since the Hero 13 Black is a more powerful camera. So the footage is going to be crispier, and the low light performance is also going to be better on the 13 Black. Oh, and then to loop back to battery life. So this has a built-in battery with what they're saying is their embedded Enduro battery technology. And the claim is that you can get up to about 100 minutes of recording time at 4K 30. And that I think was tested in like a 77-degree room with like little to no wind speed. But in my test, I got about an hour and 15 minutes before it ran out of juice. And my studio is around 70 degrees with no wind at all. Oh, and I guess we can always talk about overheating while we're at it, which is always a hot topic. But even in a room with zero wind, it basically will run out of battery before it overheats. But you can, however, increase battery life by using their battery saver mode that drops the recording down to 1080p if you'd like, but 75 minutes seems to be pretty decent still. Oh, and then on the flip side, when it comes to charging, so it took about 53 minutes to get from empty to full. So the built-in battery should definitely be something to consider with this, where it could be limiting if you're out and about and run out of juice, where you'll have to recharge it to use it again. However, you can still record by plugging it into an external source, but that's going to be less convenient and also doesn't have any water resistance at that point. So I think the Hero 4K could be a good camera for two different kinds of people. And the first of which is if you're really considering price. At $199, that's a pretty great price, and it comes with a lot of the basics, which may be all you need. But another reason that you may want to get this though is if you already live within the GoPro ecosystem and have another camera, and then you can pick this up as a backup camera or maybe a secondary camera to capture an additional angle. And if you are already a GoPro subscriber, that makes the subscription cost a better deal because you can still use your benefits like the cloud upload without any additional monthly cost. But I think the most important things to consider though with this camera is if you're more on the filmmaking side of things and edit on a desktop computer, where there is that additional step with importing and then exporting your footage out to get the stabilization. It's not like a gigantic pain, but it does add that extra step. But for publishing in 4K to something like YouTube, although the slow motion is recording in 2.7K, I don't really find it to lose all that much detail being upscaled to 4K, so I don't think that's really much of a concern. But really the biggest miss for me though is the lack of the magnetic latch system that they have on the 13 Black. This camera is really all about grab and go convenience, and a big part of that convenience is being able to quickly mount it. So hopefully we'll see some sort of accessory come out to add that feature. And that's where when it comes to pure convenience, there's also the Insta360 Go 3, where this is incredibly easy to use. However, it also does cost more and it doesn't have expandable storage. But if you're looking for higher quality footage than what this has to offer, but still want a smaller form factor and still want to stay within the GoPro ecosystem, the Hero 11 Black Mini offers more like 5.7K 60 frames per second footage, as well as 2.7K slow-mo at 240 frames per second. But it doesn't also have a touchscreen, and it also does weigh a bit more. A more capable camera for sure, but also not quite as user-friendly as this. Anyhow, that's the new Hero 4K from GoPro, and if you have any questions about it that I didn't cover in this video, go ahead and drop a comment down in the comment section down below. And on your way down there, if you found the information in this video to be useful, do me a favor and just quickly hit that like button, and also subscribe to the channel for plenty more sports tech videos just like this that are coming soon. In the meantime, have fun out there, and we will see you in the next video.